Welcome to the AI Security Edge. I'm your host, Caroline Wong, and I'm so excited to introduce one of the newer TechStrong TV podcasts. TechStrong TV features your favorite video series, industry thought leader commentary, and analyst research on DevOps, security, cloud native, and digital transformation in a podcast format. We all know that AI is revolutionizing cybersecurity, both as a weapon for attackers and as a shield for defenders. The AI Security Edge dives deep into the evolving cyber battlefield where AI-driven threats challenge traditional defenses and cutting-edge AI solutions offer new ways to fight back. Our podcast explores real-world case studies, expert insights, and practical strategies for building cyber resilience in an AI-powered world. Whether you're a security leader, practitioner, or AI enthusiast, we are so glad you're here with us today. I'm joined by my good friends and colleagues, Vanessa and Brennan. Vanessa Sauter helps enterprises secure Gen AI functions at scale. She is an expert at threat modeling and attacking RAG-based LLMs. She loves to talk about AI governance and privacy assessments. Vanessa has led hundreds of security and privacy reviews for customers at a leading artificial intelligence company. She has personally pen tested dozens of enterprises and launched hundreds of bug bounty programs. She speaks at conferences like B-Sides SF, the Diana Initiative, and Developer Week. And you can also find her writing in Forbes, Lawfare, and Dark Reading. Vanessa, welcome.
Thanks so much, Caroline. It's great to be here.
Brennan Lodge is a cybersecurity expert with over 15 years of experience in data science, AI, and threat defense. As founder of B-Logic Inc. and a professor at NYU, he has led AI-centric cybersecurity solutions at top financial institutions, including HSBC and Goldman Sachs. Brennan is known for pioneering the use of retrieval augmented generation, RAG models in cybersecurity, streamlining threat detection, and enhancing regulatory compliance. He is a technical advisor and an award-winning AI researcher, driving innovation in cyber defense strategies across multiple industries. Brennan, welcome.
Thank you. An honor to be here. Thanks, Caroline.
So the first topic that I want to hear about from each of you is, can you tell us about your experience with AI, both personally and professionally? Vanessa, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm the principal solutions architect at a company called Promfu. We are an open source company that's developing an LLM evaluation and red teaming tool. So what that means is we help users and we help companies sort of take their LLM development applications to the next level in terms of quality and output. And then we take it a step further and do red teaming for their applications or their foundation models, which will assess technical security risks that align with OWASP, any type of privacy issues that might come into play, and then this really cool nebulous area around trust, safety, and AI codes of conduct, which is what happens when foundation models or LM applications behave in erroneous or harmful ways, which we can always talk about more in the topic around insecure code and what that means. My professionally, my role right now is really helping accelerate that deployment and engaging with our community of more than 60,000 developers who are helping use this tool and contribute to making it better and really driving the red teaming forward. And then, on the side and previously, I've done a lot of bug bounty hunting for LM applications, pen testing, and then in general, just sort of being on top of the AI security governance part of it. We use AI for everything. We use Cursor to help accelerate and ship code faster. Personally, Perplexity has replaced Google for me. I almost never use Google anymore. I use ChatGPT pretty much every hour on the hour for some random task or the other. We're working on building agents for a lot of the work that we're doing. So anywhere that AI can play a role and be a companion in my professional life and in my personal life, we use it safely and we use it to move faster. So
Yeah, thanks for having me. And Vanessa, the red teamer, and me, the blue teamer here. Hopefully, there won't be too much conflict in the podcast today, Caroline. But it's always awesome, hearing the two different perspectives, right? So, and that's where I come from in my AI use. It's been an uphill battle, I'll say, till since 2015, when I was building out, remember the terms data science and big data solutions, and building them to be realistic. And it's still an uphill battle with AI. The hardcore security defenders are a bit reluctant on the use cases, and I continue to prove them wrong. That's why I'm here, right? And RAG, right? Really powerful solution, and good for the CISOs and defenders, in that you can manage your own destiny, have an on-prem solution of RAG, and build out, fine tune, customize your own models without having to use the APIs from OpenAI. So on the professional side, have started some consulting, and then also a product that uses RAG, specializing in the GRC use case of gap analysis between policies. There's hundreds of regulations across the world that relate to information security, consumer protection, data privacy laws. They're only growing, getting more verbiage with them, and having to understand and incorporate those regs to make sure you're abiding by the law is getting tougher and tougher within the GRC front. So really excited to get going and talking more about AI offense and defense.
Awesome. Awesome. I just want to take a moment and say I'm so thankful that the three of us get to be together in this moment, because things are changing so incredibly quickly. If we had gotten together a year or two ago, our conversation would have been entirely different. And I'm sure that things are going to be even that much more different 6 months from now. Um, on the AI security edge, we are really kind of exploring from a cybersecurity and resilience perspective, how is artificial intelligence helping attackers, and how is artificial intelligence helping defenders? I'd love to start on the attacker side and get your perspectives on what is the difference between being an attacker today with all of this AI everything, and how has that really shifted?
yeah, I'm happy to dive into this a little bit. So there's a couple of ways that we can actually quantify this. And that's what's really fascinating right now is we're seeing a lot of research come out around how can LLMs at the foundation level, right? So the models themselves, how can they produce first of all, can they produce insecure code, which is a risk for attackers, and how are we shipping code when developers are using AI? How do we know that they're not shipping code that is insecure that can be exploited by attackers? So there's sort of benchmarks that we're looking at right now in terms of, what is the security of the code and the quality of the code that LLMs can produce. And then there's the second level that we're starting to see a lot of research coming in, and that is around how effective are LLMs, again, at the foundation level, at identifying exploits and zero-day vulnerabilities. And so that is the efficacy, and there's different benchmarks that are being developed around how LLMs can actually take information from their environment, and subsequently be able to craft highly accurate exploits that attackers can use for attacking different enterprises or different types of infrastructure. So that's unique. And then there's another level that we're seeing, which is this agentic action. So what we're seeing is, again, the base level is, are we producing code that is insecure? The second level is can attackers use LLMs as part of their arsenal in terms of exploiting vulnerabilities in the wild? And then the third is can attackers actually develop agentic systems where they actually can behave autonomously, where there's not always a human in the loop, and they're able to use LLMs both to identify and craft exploits, but then also take it a step further and exploit them without having to constantly have feedback or have a human take action in that. So right now we're really starting to quantify the first two. The third really becoming more of an issue. We're starting to see this a little bit in the bug bounty space, actually, and it's a really good indicator in terms of sort of what the trend is, where there's a lot more agentic activity happening with public bug bounty programs about policies, in the bug bounty space in terms of how do we accommodate that. But that's really the main concern that we're seeing, and obviously as LLMs grow in capacity, and their reasoning improves, the agentic capabilities improve, that will continue to pose more of a risk for enterprises on the blue team side. And whatever your response is initially from a SecOps perspective, it'll have to be an eighth or a tenth of what the response time is now. So just things are changing and moving really fast, and we just have to prepare accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. I see it as a double-edged sword. One for the defenders, it can help with automation, maybe getting quicker to identify and synthesize the huge number of attacks and alerts that they have to go through. And the double-edged sword, right? So on the attacker side, making it easier to automate, craft new 0 days, right? And I think the overall theme is just creativeness that we as humans are leveraging AI to do and to think differently. That means attack differently, defend differently. The research is still out there. At first, I thought it was more geared when the models came out 2 years ago with the OpenAI announcement that it was 90%. Hey, this is going to be good for the offense. But now with the transparency of the models, articulating how the model is thinking and processing the information, that's really helpful for the defenders, especially the junior analysts that need that up leveling. A tide to raise all boats here. The boats being the junior analysts, in college, folks coming into the cybersecurity industry that need that level up in experience that they don't have, and understanding what this type of attack is, what this vulnerability is, and why it matters. Right, that's always been really hard to determine on the blue team, where you get CVEs and notices of, hey, the CVSS score of 9.8, yeah, it's concerning, but why does it matter to me? Now the models can really understand the environments, the assets that you have, the types of vulnerabilities that impact you. And then, yeah, more 0 days, right, for the attackers. So fighting fire with fire, right? Hopefully, it helps and there's less attacks, but they're always going to be there.
Wow. I mean, I think fundamentally, one of the questions that I wonder about is what produces more secure or less secure code, a human or AI? And I think one of the kind of, similar but not exactly the same things that I wonder about is, the other day I was in San Francisco and I was riding in a Waymo vehicle. And I actually loved it. But my husband, for example, feels very, very uncomfortable in a vehicle with no driver. And I happen to think, okay, I might actually trust kind of a smart car that is not drunk, is not texting, is not, potentially going to have some sort of severe health issue, unpredictably. But what do you each think about that? This question of what produces more secure or less secure code, a human or AI?
So I think that anything that produces code is going to make errors, and that's sort of the baseline that we should always operate under. Humans will inevitably produce insecure code. That's why we have pen testing. That's why we have software development life cycles. That's why we have bug bounty and change management. Um, the interesting question that I'm starting to see is actually not human versus AI. It's actually what AI.
Mm.
So with the open source community, one of the things that's very interesting is that you can take open source models and you can fine tune them according to your use cases. So on Hugging Face, there's hundreds and hundreds of these models out there. Many of them can create code. There's actually research coming out that we're seeing where you can actually train these models to have backdoors in them. So if there's certain triggers that a developer is using and they're using a poisoned open source model, that model will actually produce intentionally insecure code that can subsequently cause an exploit within the environment. So what's really important is actually the due diligence aspect of what models you're using when you're producing code, um, and using buttoned up models or doing very, very intense red teaming on the open source models that you're using. Obviously, if you opt for a closed source model, like OpenAI's models, Claude, they have very, very tight security and trust and safety regulations. Llama has exceptional trust and safety reports that they publish, but you have to be extremely cautious about the type of model that you're using. And then, the recommendation that I always have is continuing to have defense in depth. So always assume that there will be insecure code that will be published or it could be shipped, and then incorporating additional policies into that. So I don't think there is such a thing right now as human versus AI. The assumption is that they partner together. And what happens is you create at an organization level the different layers for defense in depth, whether that's for a separate agent that reviews the code. So you actually have an LLM as a judge as part of what's being shipped, having human reviewers, having change management processes. So there's different layers that you can get into, but inevitably, things are going to happen, and you just kind of have to prepare for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good we've got the Vanessas of the world, pen testing, right, and red teaming, and it's that human factor that I think you're always going to need in cybersecurity and in AI, right? You think back to the car manufacturing process, right, by Henry Ford, and putting the car together, right? There were no safety belts, there were no airbags, right? But it took a series of unfortunate events of car crashes, to implement those, safety precautions that we now have. And, similarly with AI, it's still greenfield, right? And it's going to take the red teamers and the pen testers to experience those, outer edge, type of experiences with the model to then put some safety precautions in place. And even with the manufacturing process that is, fully automated that, Elon Musk wants to do with his car manufacturers, I still think can't be done. You're going to need that human in the loop to identify those defects, right? That are produced by the machines, the manufacturing process, and then rinse and repeat with refining, right? The tough part is, most of the AI models are black box. And even the scientists and professors like me still have no freaking clue what's going on behind the scenes as to how they're working, right? What we do know, and I think we need to be better at in the industry, is the data that we use to create the models. We could do that in the enterprise. We could do that with RAG and the custom models that we're building, the data that is held within the vector database. And there are some really good tools for visualization and transparency. And then the pen testing, right? Testing for racist remarks that may come out from the model, and everything else that may impact or security concerns or giving up intellectual property. Right. It's a lot of work that us as cybersecurity practitioners are, back to the drawing board. But hey, that's why they pay us the big bucks in cybersecurity, right?
That's right. You two 20 minutes of talking with you two feels like it flies by in an instant. I know that in my brain, there are just like sparks going off. And I know that for the next like 24, 48 hours, I'm just going to be like thinking about our conversation. And I really hope that is the same for our audience today. Thank you so much for joining us today on the AI Security Edge. Make sure that you get a chance to check out our previous episode with Daniel Miesler. And we have a lot of fun episodes coming up for you. If you loved today's podcast, don't forget that TechStrong TV has a bunch of other podcasts that are also super great. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Brennan, for being here with me today. And thanks so much to our viewers and listeners. We'll see you next time.